All righty. Well, hello everyone. I think we might still have a few people joining, but welcome everyone. Thanks so much for joining us today again in another coffee break. Just as a reminder that we will be recording this event, and we'll go through the talk that Mario and Antonio are going to give us today. But then feel very free, like super free to write any questions in the chat box there. Emily will be paying attention to your questions and moderating them, so at the end we can have some discussion on whatever questions you have, and we'll put their emails too in case you want to reach out later today to them. So today we have Mario Cirett, who was with us 2 weeks ago, telling us stories about the conservation in the Sky Islands, and Antonio Esquer. I'll just quickly introduce them. Mario is an ecologist who worked for 18 years at the National Commission of Protected Areas at CONAMP in Mexico, where he served as director of different protected areas, including the Revillagigedo Archipelago, Biosphere Reserve, the Cabo Pulmo National Park, and the Bavispe Wildlife Reserve in the Sky Islands. He has widespread experience in fire and wildlife management and protected areas planning. Currently, he collaborates with GreaterGood.org, doing wildlife monitoring with camera traps in the Sky Island region, and coordinates the Matruena Discovery expeditions. With Profauna, Mario is the ecosystem management coordinator, and he executes projects that have been really critical for the conservation and management for species such as the golden eagle, beaver, jaguars, ocelot, black bear, and other important species. Antonio is an independent consultant and coordinator of Profauna in Sonora since 2016. He specializes in restoration and wildlife monitoring and management projects. Between 2007 and 2016, he worked for the Nature Conservancy as conservation planning coordinator and as the manager of the Uno Reserve within the Biosphere Reserve of Janos in Chihuahua, which is a place that was instrumental in the reintroduction of the American bison to the plains of Chihuahua. He also worked as manager of Rancho Los Fresnos, just across the border here in Tucson, in Sonora. And in the past, Antonio worked for the National Institute of Geography and Statistics, and he taught undergraduate courses at the University of Sonora. Both Mario and Antonio are founding members of several organizations in Mexico that have been critical in conservation and environmental education efforts. And today, they're here to tell us the story of conservation and challenges of the San Pedro River watershed, and a lot of the different intricacies that have in terms of like policy and politics that have happened in the area, and why it's such an important place, and what's the outlook for this place in the near future. So with no further ado, I introduce you to Mario, Antonio Esquer and Mario Cirett. Thank you very much, both of you, Antonio and Mario, for being here and telling us this important story.
Hola, buenos días. No te escuchamos, Mario.
Good morning. Have a nice coffee.
Okay, I'm start. Let me thank you for joining us, and let me tell you that this is not a history class. It's just to share some memories, to maybe trying to rescue some key moments, okay, events that the mark the future of conservation in San Pedro. And we in the events is not strictly related to the period market, and some of them are continue along the time. That the data not necessarily are exactly. It's just to have an idea when happened, what happened, and the idea is just to have a general idea about these main events. In the beginning, maybe one of the Mario and I was talking about maybe the kicking start to push the conservation movement in Mexico in San Pedro River watershed. Maybe what this meaning of salsa in the starting of the operation of the Ajos-Bavispe Reserve I don't know, Mario, do you want to share, because I didn't be in that moment in the basin, but you start working with the Konami, no, not Konami in that moment, with the preserve in that time.
Well, before I get the preserve in 1986, I would like to share that the first steps of conservation for this Mexican basin was from Centro Ecológico Sonora. They start with the SAMPES. SAMPES was the Sonora State Protected Area System, where they start to planning which areas in Sonora can be protected. Ajos-Bavispe Preserve is one of the oldest preserves in Mexico. It's from his decree came from 1930s. The first decree from 36, second one from 39. So it's an old preserve. Uh, During the SAMPES process, one of the identified areas that must be preserved was San Pedro Watershed. There was a proposal to decree the whole basin, including Sierra Mariquita and Sierra Lenita, as a protected area. After that, federal government gets some of those proposed areas, and those protected areas born. I can tell you about the Pinacate. I can tell you about Sierra de Álamo. I can tell you about Alto Golfo del Terrigal, and of course, uh, put some people to do some management and planning for the protected areas of Bavispe. Now Bavispe. Before that, it was Ajos-Bavispe. That includes Sierra Los Ajos, Buenos Aires, and Sierra La Púrica as a lot number 4. After the federal government uh, put some efforts to give people and equipment and facilities to do their job, it was the time when SALSA conference came to the region. It was the San Pedro conference, it was in 1999, I think November 1999. SALSA is a semi-arid land surface atmosphere program, and they planned along with Unison about and his watch from imagine those years, and they planned a conference in the region to see what they can do, what who was working area, who was doing research, who was doing social approach, and that kind of things. Can you?
Okay. Well, in around the 2000, it started a new century. It was very interesting. Was a very interesting program, the Parks in Peril from USAID. We have a lot of resources, and maybe with the most important resources to implement. So part of the resources that the resources was getting by the Nature Conservancy in Mexico, or no, in Mexico and in Arizona. And the funds passed through the government state, through the IMADES, Environmental Institute. Now is changed the name is CEDES, Comisión de Ecología. And in IMADES pass funds for the extraction of Ajos Preserve. In that time, I moved. I started to work in 2001, and as a part of this program, the PIP 2000, I started working with the Private Lands Conservation Initiative, and working together with our co-worker of the Freshwater Initiative. Basically, it was to work with restoration and to work with to make an agreement as a private lands, like easements or other types of legal tools to ensure conservation of private or social lands. But in that time, it was very interesting about the situation, the proposal to increase the surface of the Bavispe Preserve to create the huge Mababi Preserve. And that create a big, really big conflict led between the miners, the Grupo Mexico in Cananea, and the Semarnat. This is maybe a special moment to define the atmosphere of the how to do conservation. Um, and Mario, I don't know if you want to share us some about
about the Mababi. I was one of the planners. I write many of the data proposals. Mababi initiative was just the effect of the proposal from Centro Ecológico, which was trying to protect the San Pedro River basin and Sierra Lenita. And we were already in Ajos-Bavispe. So Mexico decided that maybe we can fusion the both areas, fusion Ajos-Bavispe and the Sierra, because Sierra Los Ajos is just on the northern end of the preserve, and it was adjoined to the basin.
It's just
so
including
start the process. Excuse me,
Mario. I remember that the map is basically include all the Sky Island region in Mexico.
no, not the whole area, but some extent. The proposal has 7,000 780,000 hectares, which is I don't know how much, a million, 1.4 acres, a million acres. It's like a huge preserve. It was I don't know. We spent at least 2 years trying to get the annuance and the permission from the landowners to get into the preserve in that proposal. We met with at least I don't know. It was around 680 landowners on the Sky Island region, including the Ajos-Bavispe Reserve and the protected area, and the proposed protected area in the San Pedro River basin. As I told you, we spent 2 years collecting signatures and agreements from each landowner, trying to get their annuals to decrease this protected area, proposed protected area. Anyway.
Okay. The interesting thing that I remember when we were, my role was to talk with people and negotiate and try to convince them to do something. We have some activities to do about a restoration project, a small restoration project, maybe as a cattle exclusion fence, and to as incentive to put some equipment, maybe a drinker for cattle, or some pump for water, and sign an agreement. And I remember in that time that the miners involved and Zoom to their team, to the ranchers, all the people who manage cattle. So they have a front against conservation or against the Mababi project. So when we are going to knock every door, they close it in our nose, or they say, no, I don't want to talk with you. And we are going ejido by ejido, community by community, house by house, and nobody wants to talk with us, because, sorry, Mario, for the people,
it's okay.
For the people, they don't recognize if there is people, staff from Preserve, staff from an NGO, local NGO, or staff of the big NGO, or another agency of the government. For they, we are the same. And this is a lesson learned because everybody have to be uh, to work at least, if not together, at least in the same way. Mario, you want to say something?
Grupo México, the minor groups spend 100 pesos per each peso that we spend in the process. So we can't compete with that. It was amazing. We were trying to get into the ejido communities, and they came. They're gonna steal your cattle. They don't leave you
Stole
chance
the
to do
land.
anything. Yeah, they're gonna steal you your land. They're gonna put a lot of wolves or grizzly bears and things like that.
Don't trust them.
Yeah.
And I remember because we are very frustrated because we cannot advance. We have our role in activities to do. We cannot advance because the nation, then the nice of because the people doesn't want to work with us, receive any incentive, any work. So in this the ranchers, especially the ejidos, uh, uh, came again to the life uh, uh, an organization, the historic organization in Cananea. We call it the Unión de Ejidos. It's a, I don't know if it's need translation about it. It's when several ejido lands work in the past, maybe in the 60s as a cooperative, working together to produce, and they were really successful in that. So that Unión de Ejidos, called Jacinto Lopez, they in this Bababi conflict, they uses the historic name of this organization as a flag to have more power against the Bababi project. So I remember when we are um, just driving in Cananea without knowing what to do. We don't know with who talk about our project and try to. So we decide to go directly to the mouth of the wolf, so the office of the Unión de Ejidos, and there is some people there who was very active, the chief of the leaders of the Unión de Ejidos, and when they saw us entrance into the office, they opened the eyes in surprise, but after a second of surprise, they were very polite. Okay, welcome. Do you want coffee, etc. And we were to start talking and trying to be pretty transparent about it, because some arguments were about where they're coming from, what is the argument for that investment. A lot of confusion or um, partial truth the miners managed with them. So we have a really excited talking with the group. A lot of people enter to the office after. It is a moment we have several small groups discussing and talking as a Sonoran people. We talk aloud. We always always laughing when we are talking. The other people from the south of Mexico, as Paulo, maybe they can think we are angry or bad. No, we are just talking. But always laughing. No laughing. It's gritando como es.
Talk loud.
Talking loud. And a really hot discussion, but clarifying and key aspect when they say, okay, it's fine, we understood, we are fine. So the next day, we visit people. they say, okay, I receive a call, you now are welcome. What do you want to do? So we start 3 projects. One project in Rancho Los Fresnos, a private ranch. Well, with Rancho Los Fresnos, we don't have any conflict because they are private, no, nothing to do, but we can start with that. In Rancho Las Palmitas in Ejido Morelos, where is the only one Prairie Dog colony in Sonora, and in Villaverde is in the east side of the basin. In Villaverde, this is a very significant picture because it was the first agreement, a model of agreement. We already use Sky Island and take this model and use it, and then Borderland Restoration Network uses. I received it again 2 years ago with some modification, but it's the same concept of agreement. And this guy is the owners of Villaverde. They pass, both of these guys passes away, and it's very significant for me. When I was looking for a picture to illustrate this presentation, I found this picture in I remember we lost this the first partners in a good friends in the area. It's the significance of this picture. And in that time also, it was very important in the parallel way. There's we're trying to build integrated vision of the basin. So the Nature Conservancy Arizona, the Nature Conservancy in Mexico, and in Imades, in the Conamp and Reserve, develop an initiative, call it, and have several names. One of them is San Pedro River, with the idea to show only one vision. So we have, there was part of the Nature Conservancy in Arizona was working in the lower San Pedro from Benson to the north, in the highway. The red line is the I-10 highway. And other team of the Nature Conservancy was working in the upper San Pedro. And there really is a middle San Pedro, no? Because the really upper is in the Mexican portion. No? This is a really upper San Pedro. So we have the opportunity to work in team for planning and visit all the team of Mexico visit the upper and the lower San Pedro in Arizona. They come to Mexico. We have what is happening, what is that tool, what is the strategies, etc. And this they create a certain order about initiatives we are working in that collaboration with the Nature Conservancy and in Imades, and in the relationship with Ajos-Bavispe Reserve also. And with this, and that time, always was happening the Apache Highlands evolution analysis planning that includes the San Pedro and a really good version of the Sky Island region. See, Mario?
I would like to say, just to close the BAVAVI issue, is that the BAVAVI initiative, it was the only rock in the shoe that we get talking about conservation activities in the area. After that, we start with another initiative. Toño was telling us about the Apache Highlands, the Pedro River, and also Mexican government starts to apply funds, governmental funds to do conservation. For example, in those years it was PRODERS, Programa de Conserva del Desarrollo. They were trying to do some conservation and restoration activities in there. With Semarnat, CONAFOR, and also CONAB is still doing that. Get into the area in 2001, more or less, and fly away in 2004. However, CONAB and Semarnat starts the process program that later came to Procodes, which is still in use for Semanat and Conamp. Uh, Conamp did around 2,500 hectares of contouring in the San Pedro. Did around 800 cubic meters of gabions. Did around 3,000 cubic meters of rock walls, things like that. So the conservation and restoration efforts have been increased from the CVAVI initiative to now.
Mhm. Other important thing is are the lesson learned. Another lesson learned. It was a really a good school. This because when we are participating in several meetings, we learn about the management of expectative when we are talking with people on the land. Remember the land tenure in Mexico is different than US. And most of the land in Mexico belongs to somebody. And mostly in Mexico, that somebody are ranchers. And the laws in Mexico, uh, the authorities cannot have the capacity to enforce the law. So we have very good laws, but we don't have capacity to enforce it. And the thing is to try to work with people to try to have um, a volunteer adoption of best practices. But also when we are talking with people, it's very important to take care about the expectations because in the process of CVAVI, the expectation from the government was really unreal. And for example, it's about that if you say yes to the preserve, we are going to be able to bring bird watchers, and they pay a lot of money. You are going to 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 be rich in the future. So it's a bad expectation created to the people, and something like this. It's about to talk about money to the people. So we learn to be transparent and to be very honest about what we can offer in the process of conservation. Okay. And also talk when we go to knock on other doors with the people. One of them told me something that marked to me. Okay, was very significant because he said, I know you are going to be like the other engineers. It's for the people in the field, everyone is engineers. They don't recognize biologists or all is engineers.
We lost Antonio.
Looks like we lost Antonio.
Yeah, let me text him.
Well, uh, I would like to tell you about the winds of change after the, the early 2000s. After 2004, 2005, uh, IMADES starts a huge program in the area with, huh, he take us the presentation. Well, anyway, uh, the region is composed mostly for ejido land. 80% of the land belongs to a community land, and just 22% belongs to private owners. In those years, TNC decides to, to buy the Los Fresnos ranch in a way to protect the, the wetlands of that ranch. Uh, those TNC doesn't have in those years the capability to be the owner because they ran just on the border. So they decide to give Vida, Sonoran NGO, the administration, and the land is given to Naturalia, just in order to protect the land and have certainly certeza to protect the area. Uh, Ajos-Bavispe keeps going in doing conservation, doing restoration activities. Vida does the same thing. The conjunction of TNC, Vida, and Naturalia starts a huge process to restore them. The San Pedro has the San Pedro community, all the ranchers, all the ejido landowners, it starts trusting in mainly in Vida because they were very close to them. They were starting to drink beer with them, to do a job with the restoration on the riparian area. Start with Vida. They start doing uh, river. How do you call that, Paulo?
Uh,
Exclusion ganadera, cattle exclusion from the riparian areas, cattle exclusion. And they were fencing many areas in the San Pedro River. And then CONAM came and decided to join. However, when they start this, the water mirror start along the area in the Mexican side, and that allow the beavers were released in the San Pedro riparian conservation area start coming south, and they spread all along the watershed in the Mexican area. So we started getting water all over the river. That was amazing because riparian trees recruitment starts very hard because the cattle was excluded and there were water already. Toño, back.
Sigo. Okay, this is the, as Mario was saying, this is the vision of conservation of the main stem of the San Pedro River. And we have to, the vision said to protect 16 kilometers of the main stem of the river using the cattle exclusion fences. That is illustrative, just no. It's how to build this vision, and the division are the pastures, or not pasture. It's like a ejido rice, or a small ranchers in size in the ejido, or the land tenure in size in the ejido, and is how to build in this. Permit us to know with who people to talk, etc. And part of this in that time around 2005, and now we are in Vida. I'm part of the founders of Vida, and was always also happened that in Santa Cruz Watershed, the Sonoran Institute was working in similar things, in working with people with very successful project, even with this working with the youth bird watchers, los halcones, famosos halcones, no? The famous ones. And we start with another project with the USAID to have a collaborative project between the two basins to establish the conservation rancher network. and it's part to try to starting with exchange experiences with the ranchers we are working in San Pedro, in the ranchers in Santa Cruz, Watershed. And this was a nice project. And I don't know how can not move this. And, 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 and sorry, sorry. Okay. I don't know how when I cannot move this. Okay. And it was very interesting how to create, because the Conservation Ranchers Network is an idea to have in keep, because as I mentioned before, in the beginning, the idea is to work with the managers of the land and the landowners, no? And other thing that important happened in that in 2004 and 2008, more or less, is the conservation action planning that join us some of the actors working in the area to develop the strategies to identify conservation targets, to identify and measure the threats. And that's it. This is a part that's just to illustrate some of the how is the conservation target they apply in the now still. We don't know. We need to check if the value of the conservation status is the same or not, and we need to value about the threats. But in this case, some of the conservation targets are the tropical migratory birds, fishes and amphibians, the prairie dogs, grasslands, the vegetation of a Sky Island, cienegas, and riparian forest. And the main threats are the inadequate practices of ranching, exotic species, and mining. Another one, extraction of underground water, for example. And this type maybe are the same threats in San Pedro. And maybe the more spread, the most important threat in the basin is the extraction of water from the mine. In this case, this threat appears with a medium value, because in that time the mine was were closed for 3 years, and they're not a threat in that moment. But now they increase their capacity for pumping. They have more wells to store water. And the other one is ranching, because ranching is everywhere. No? Mario, you want to complement some?
Yeah, talking about the mine, just to announce that Grupo Mexico, they're going to start a new mine, Cale del Pilar, which they're going to mine Sierra Elerita, and they're going to process all their mineral, all ore, in the Buenavista del Cobre plant, which is in Cananea. That's it's a bad news, because they're going to increase their production, the copper production, so they're going to use the increase of water consumption, because the main process that they use is flotation, so they use a lot of water, and lixiviation too, for gold and precious metals.
Okay, so we are thinking that it's good idea to try to revisit this planning, and maybe to update the information, to have a process, because this process have to be updated every 5 years. And this is one idea we have in Profauna to do. And
Yeah. Also, Antonio, maybe we could talk about the Prairie Dog colony
yeah,
in
okay.
the San Pedro. Yeah, just to tell you what's the importance to do another planning process.
Mhm.
Why? Because In those years, the prairie dogs colonies were three. There were three colonies in the basin,
Yeah.
and one of the managing uh, things that was recommended on this conservation plan, it was increase the population of prairie dogs. This is the only prairie dog colony in Sonora.
Right
We
here, no?
suspect right here,
En
a
la
little bit
traila.
north. Yeah, La Traila,
Aquí.
Las
Las
Palmitas. There
palmitas.
was another colony up there where
Y la otra, right here. La
yeah,
mesa.
yeah,
Mhm.
La and the only colony that we have is Las Palmitas, and it's the smaller colony. There's a bad management. There was an attempt to get prairie dogs individuals uh, into the Patagonia
To la ciénaga.
area, in
La
La
ciénaga.
Ciénaga in Patagonia, just to increase the population there. However, the way in which the management was done, it was bad. The colony of La Mesa disappeared completely. It was the bigger colony. It has around 600 individuals, and we lost it. Just to show you how the danger is, we just have 250 individuals in Las Palmitas colony. So we are in the way to lose the original prairie dog that we have here. And it's important because Naturalia did some genetic studies on the colony, and they encounter that this prairie dog colony uh, it was separated from the Janos Casas Grandes prairie complex 10,000 years ago.
Mhm.
So that's very important for us.
Yeah.
Why? Because we suspect that it's the only Arizona subspecies that is in the world. The subspecies, according to Donald Hofmeister, Sinomylos ludovicianus arizonensis, it was in the Sonoran, Arizona border area, in the San Pedro area. And they suspect that the this species had disappeared from the 40s. But no, this colony, it was the only prairie dog colony left. So it's very important to protect this area.
Yeah.
We have been doing as Profauna, as Ajos-Bavispe, as TNC. We were collaborating from 2008 as we opened the group until now. There are four or five organizations working in this group. Unison, Naturalia, TNC, now Profauna, and Ajos-Bavispe still in the area. So we're trying to get resources, and we're going to do things to avoid that this colony disappear from Sonora and Arizona.
Mhm. And the important from the beginning, the important is to keep and preserve, now restore the prairie dog colonies in this area. But the idea is to ensure another colony in Los Fresnos. In the conservation action planning, one of the strategies is to establish at least 6 new colonies in San Pedro in Mexico. So when the idea was to start with the first of these 6 in Los Fresnos. In Los Fresnos is right here. Yeah, so after this management, Mario tell us, we decide to stop because if we take more prey dog from this colony, uh, we have the risk to lose them. But now we have to recognize the management of the relationship with the owner is Naturalia. Naturalia is doing a great job here. I have the first, maybe Mario had the first one. I then continued the relationship for several years. And then we lost a little bit of communication because it's very special person, the owner, or the leader of this ranch, Las Palmitas. But naturally, is keeping the relationship, the access is very important, to access to monitor and to have a little bit of management. So this is an important thing to do if we want to do key management projects in San Pedro. Always we have to keep in mind the Prairie Dogs colony. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
Another thing is that in this period of time, I told you the beavers start spreading all along the watershed. Also, there are proof that the beavers uh, cross the Chivato Mountains and get into the
Santa Cruz.
Santa Cruz River.
Mm-hmm.
So there are many beaver family groups. So CONAMP and Naturalia did some studies and decide to move some prairie dogs to the San Bernardino River basin, and also in
Cajón Bonito.
Cajón, in Cuenca Los Ojos land.
Mm-hmm.
So the beavers are doing well in the area.
Mm-hmm. As we say with Mr. Dr. Ray Turner, we said es mejor castor que tractor in restoration. No, it's better beaver than digger. And the other aspect is the Ajos-Bavispe changed the classification of the category, because it was using for decades from the tourists a category that doesn't exist.
Doesn't exist anymore
in the Mexican legislation.
The law. Yeah.
So it's very uncertain, the category of the preserve. So with the effort of several organizations, mainly by the Wildlands Network, Juan Carlos Bravo, basically leading this, and moving and lobbying and doing a lot of job, communicating, getting signatures for a lot of people. Is the way to recognize the Ajos-Bavispe Preserve in getting a current category as an area de protección de flora and fauna. It's just with the name Bavispe, no more Ajos, it's just Bavispe. So it's Bavispe Preserve, and now is in that moment is in the process to get the management plan. No? And this all in our case, and Mario and I that working in San Pedro is we're starting to work there. Mario goes to the Cabo and the Revillagigedo Island, and I went to several parts of Mexico and in Chihuahua. Finally, we returned to our site in La Cuenca del Río San Pedro, now as a Profauna, and we are rescuing to all the lesson learned in the area, try to take in advance all the relationships we have in the region, and to know the model to work. Also in this process, we are trying to work with several allies like Watershed Management Group, that now we are working with people in promoting, recognizing that the inadequate ranching practices is one of the main threat in that basin. We rescue this threat, and we're going to promote best practices of ranching as a way to cover, no? in promoting restoration and management and in pilot project of ranching with in the collaboration with the Sky Island Alliance, which also is taking advantage of these motivated people to promote more restoration sites and also to promote wildlife management areas. This is Pablo in Emily. This is Eduardo Rios, one of the partners where we are going to work with the UMA in the area. Is one of the more active person. Is a leader of his community, and
Community leader, yeah.
and in this is the process we are working on. Try to focus in people, working with people because they are the managers of the land. If we don't import people, we are not to advance with any. We can create plannings, we can create laws, we can create a lot of things in work in a specialist groups. But if we don't go to the field and work directly with people, moving, and now is not not to reduce. The idea is to reduce the expectation of incentive. The incentive must be to approach them the tools, the knowledge, in how to do the things. And in my time in Chihuahua, we have the opportunity to work with other ranchers. In some of them are moving a very big group, the regenerative branching, and it's like a modification or an evolution of the holistic management and others type of management of cattle or ranching of grassland, but they are moving uh, a lot of people, maybe groups of more than 500 people involved in this type of philosophies and this trying to learn, and we are trying to involve these people. But we do not promote any flag of ranching type. We promote best practices. But in this case, we are using this the capacity of communication, the capacity to share information of manejo regenerativo de ranchos. Jose Manuel Perez, I assume you know him, is part of this group of manejo regenerativo. And so we are working to try to connect people in order to promote the ranching to ranching conversations, to share experiences, to try to adapt what is the practices that this is better for each one of the people involved in, no? And for our side, was trying to keep the science part, to keep a baseline of monitoring, to evaluate the change on the system, to keeping, to promote restoration works in the areas, in trying to motivate people doesn't wait for a government incentive. It's trying to change the idea that it's important for the lands to keep the productive of the soils in the land. No? So for us, is work with people always. Mario?
Yeah, we would like as ecologists and biologists to do conservation, strike conservation. I would like to protect all the wildlife species. However, if we would like to do conservation in somebody else's lands, we need to work with them. We can't tell them how to do the things. We must suggest them how to do the things. We must show them, be in the field with them, trying to teach them from the beginning, and not only for the conservation concern, also for their productivity. They're trying to get something from their land. So it's very different than the US. You have your protected areas, your national parks, your forest lands, and belongs to federal government. Uh, under the law from BLM, National Park Service, Forest Service. However, in Mexico, it's very different. There are just some federal lands, a few federal lands. Ajos, Sierra Los Ajos is an example. Bavispe Preserve has 184,000 hectares, almost 2,000 hectares, 2,000, sorry, 200,000 hectares. And from that surface, just 1,200,000 are federal lands. We can, federal can do whatever they want in those federal lands. They destinate those lands as your wilderness categories, something like that. We call it areas, as as nuclear. But in the San Pedro, as I said before, belongs to somebody else, private owners or ejidatario community lands. So we must work with them, shoulder with shoulder. We must help them to do these kind of walls, stone walls. We must be with them when they're working.
Mario.
There's a question where it is possible to visit the Bavispe Preserve from William Bemis. Let me tell you, the service is closed to the public. However, if you talk with the pioneers, they can allow you to join them. I can guarantee that. If the fire season, the wildfire season, they will let you to join them.
Okay. Okay. The time always is the issue. We have a for future, we are sure we need to keep to the thing we are doing. We need to revisit the priorities and to establish the strategies but continue working with people. When I see this expression, this face that people are interested and this face is happy with the work, I motivate with that. No? I think there is we have hope. Where there are hope to do in we are committed to do it. I have a very good question from William Dennis. He said this is a very interesting and important history. Are there books or articles that one could read to learn more about the history of the environmental work in that part of the Sky Island? Yesterday, Mario and I was talking that we need to write this. We need to produce this. I produce a very intern report from a job in that I call it experiences of conservation in San Pedro. That's where I took the picture, the images of these presentations, the maps and more. But it's important to give it some order to share with others. So this is motivation to do some. It's Pablo.
No, thanks for. I mean, yeah, we have those two. Thanks for the questions. I guess I would also just something that is interesting, maybe might be interesting for people, is like now that the new mines are going to open, both the copper extraction and then the lithium. What is the perspective on that you see on a lot of the ranchers? Like, what are they thinking about the new mining operations?
Yeah, how the Hilo guys that avoid us to work on the CVAVI Initiative, they are telling us, wow, we must get into the CVAVI Preserve in those years.
But remember, we're talking when doing the new diagnostic for Watershed Management Group, and we find that depends of the agreement. Every ejido is like a small government. It's not a government, no. It's like us, no. It's similar because have a organization inside, and every the mine made agreements with each ejido, and the capacity of negotiation of that ejidos, every one ejido with the mine, generate different benefits or of the negotiation. So there is ejidos, for example, ejido Zapata, where Eduardo lives. They are not happy with the condition with the mine. They say in Eduardo is very angry and he's very pushing people to be against the mine. However, in Ejido Zapata, some of them they are happy because they negotiate another type of incentive or benefits, and so it depends. But in general way, in general, our perception is the people don't feel good because the overstretch on water. They are the most important problem for ranchers is water, and everybody feel this that is not is negative, but in some cases like in Ejido Zaragoza is maybe the bad sensation could be less because they receive some incentive in money. What do you think, Mario?
Yeah, here I have seen that the water levels have been diminishing. So they lose water for cattle, and they're trying to avoid that they escalate more.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. It's you know, it's sad to think that might actually, aside from the environmental impacts, might bring some social conflict. There's so James Norval there. He's pointing out that there are 3 Madrid conference proceedings that have some articles about the Mexican portion of the basin. Stromberg and Telman, 2009, and then it's a book about the ecology of San Pedro, but it focuses on the U.S. side. Well, I don't see any more questions, but this has been extremely interesting, Antonio and Mario. This is an area that, of course, not just anybody has access to these places and to the people that live there. So we really appreciate your insights, and we're, as some of you know, we're working with Profauna, with Mario and Antonio, to work with ranchers in the region, and that's something that we're really excited to. So we'll be probably updating you on more on building up on a lot of these efforts soon. We have to, it's time to go, but before we do that, I wanted to, well, first thank Mario and Antonio for their time and for the effort, and thank you everyone for showing up to the coffee break. I hope you actually had some good coffee. Remember that in December the 10th, we will be, well, you don't have to remember this. On December the 10th, we will be presenting our next report on the border wildlife study. We are really excited to tell you new stories about our cameras, what we've been finding, and what we're going to be doing. We'll tell you what we're going to be doing in the next months too. It's an interesting story now also because the winds are changing, and so we'll be telling you about that. So please join us on December the 10th. The registration will be available very soon. And with that, thank you again, everyone. I hope you have a nice weekend. And thank you again, Mario and Antonio.
De nada. The next is going to be in Spanish, so prepare.
Así es, la siguiente será en español. Okay, ciao everyone. Good to see you.
Gracias.
Hasta luego.
You're welcome always.
Bye bye. Gracias.